Hit the switch and the buttons.
Okay, Mr. Verizon says it's 7 o'clock. So I would like to call this meeting to order. This is the Newman City Council regular meeting for April 26, 2016. If everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for the invocation. Thank you. Ready to begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your head. Dear Lord, we thank you for bringing us here together tonight. We ask that you watch over this great city of Newman and give this council the strength and the wisdom to make the right decisions for this great city. In this we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. And could we have roll call, please?
Councilmember Davis. Graham.
Here.
Candia. Day.
Here.
And Mayor Martina.
Present. And declaration of conflict of interest? There being none. 6, ceremonial matters. Tonight we have badge pinning of volunteer firefighters, Victor Gill and Salvador Miramontes. And welcome. And the chief will do the honors tonight.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. Tonight we have 2 Academy graduates, Victor Gill and Sal Miramontes. They've joined the City of Newman on the fire department. They're our newest volunteers. Just to give you a little background on what they had to go through to stand up here today, they had to go through a fire academy, which is approximately 182 hours, and they met every Wednesday evening and every other weekend for approximately 6 months. During that time, they learned a few things, actually quite a few things, including fire suppression, fire prevention, fire investigation, hazardous materials response, CPR, and first aid. This is just a few of the minimum requirements that were required for them to become volunteer firefighters. They're going to continue to further their education in-house now at the station with mentors. They've both been assigned mentors. So it's now up to them what they want to focus on. First, I'd like to introduce Victor Gill. He's been a Newman resident for about 11 years now, and he believes one of his greatest achievements was becoming a volunteer firefighter. He did become a volunteer firefighter because he is proud of his community. His goal is to continue his education in firefighting and get involved in the future of Newman. A quote that he left me with was, "Volunteering doesn't take time, it takes heart." And he is excited about this new journey in his life. The next one here I'll introduce is Sal Miramontes. He has a long work history, including being a computer operator, marketing and driving, and being a driver. Currently, he's working as a commercial painter for the last 11 years. We've already actually used his services at the station, so it's glad to have someone like that on board. He has a passion for community service since he was young. He is interested in his interest in the fire department actually started at a community blood drive we have there. It's actually a funny story. He went up to the chief at the time and asked him, is there a program for helping out at the fire department? And his idea was, cleaning up around the station, painting. Next thing you know, he's in a 182-hour academy and learned how to be a firefighter. So, but I think it was a calling for him because he definitely looks at this as a beginning to a long career as a firefighter. He appreciates this opportunity, and he attributed it to God and enjoys working with his new fire family and assisting those in need. He is humble and hopes to continue to receive prayers for those that put their life on the line for others. So at this time, I'd like you guys to take the oath with me here. So go ahead and raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I,
Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of California, against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will
and I will
well and faithfully
well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon the ones I
Upon which I am about to enter. Thank you. All right, so, Victor. So if Victor's sister could come up? Okay, perfect. We'll be gonna, she's gonna pin the back. And then, and Sal's gonna have it. All right, and I'd like to welcome the two newest firefighters to City of Newman.
Congratulations, gentlemen, and welcome to the fire department. Yeah, we look forward to a long time that you'll be spending in Newman and helping fight fires, and someday you may be a full-time fireman. You never know, because one of these days, you started with the chief, and down the road, you never know. So it's just a matter of time. At this time, we're going to take a break so we can, have some fresh refreshments. I think Keith has baked some cookies and. Anyway, so we'll take a 5-minute break. Session. We'll move on to 7, which is items from the public. These are non-agenda items, and anyone would like to get up and talk before the council, now's the time. You go to the podium and your name and state your address for the record.
Good evening. Jose Fernandez, 1640 Dutch Corner Drive, Newman, California. I also own JG Liquor across the street. I've got several issues, but I'll get down to the main issue. I'm here. I asked to be put on the agenda. I was told this matter wasn't viable to put on the agenda, so that's why I'm here beforehand. So I don't know what I have to do to get put on the agenda, but my problem is, about a week ago, one of my vendors, a place called Hillmore Bakery in Hillmore, got a phone call from the city of Newman saying that somebody from the city of Newman saw the van in front of my store, and they called the bakery and asked them what they were doing in town, who they were delivering to. The bakery is a small business, mom and pop, out of Hillmore, Portuguese owners, and they kind of freaked out because they thought they were in trouble. And they asked what happened, what they did wrong, and they told them that, or the city told them, for them to deliver into Newman, into my store, they would have to buy a permit or a business license. They didn't understand because they don't operate in Newman, they don't have a store in Newman, they're out of Hillmore, but they do deliver here once a week. At that time, I had $200 of product at that bakery headed over here to the store. They didn't deliver because they didn't want to get in trouble. So I called the city and I asked what was going on, and I was told that for the bakery or any other vendor to deliver into my store, they would have to buy a city business license, which was, I've been here 11 years. It's the first that I've ever heard of this. Never been told that, never seen a letter to that effect. I've had vendors come and go from the store, and I got various vendors. So I asked, and I don't know who I talked to in the city. It was a young lady, and I don't know her name. But I asked, is this just for me or is this for everybody? She says it's for everybody. I asked her how long this has been in place. She said me as a business owner should know these rules. I told her it was the first I've heard. But anyways, the reason I'm here is the bakery was called. To me, out of common courtesy, I think the city should have called me first and told me, hey, you got a vendor coming into your store. Are they legally licensed by the city or whatever this ordinance is that I've never heard of? But the city went directly to one of my vendors, panicked them to where they've told me they won't deliver into the city because they don't want to pay the $75. They can't afford the $75. It's a small store and they don't think it's fair. So they didn't do that delivery that day. I lost $200 because I had to pay for that delivery no matter what. I was told by the city that day if I wanted to deliver, I could pick it up myself, where they wouldn't need that license, but I can't just shut my doors and go get this delivery. What I'm concerned about now, what I want to know, and what I asked the city then, and I didn't give very much answers, is this for every business in this town? If you're gonna charge Newman Bakery, are you charging the people that bring peanuts? Are you charging Saputo cheese, the milk loaves that get delivered into Saputo? Are you charging the furniture store down the street from me every time somebody brings furniture in there to be sold? Are they paying a business license? And if you're going to be fair, this is throughout the city, not just against me. I don't think that's fair. And like this bakery says, hey, we're not going to pay. We can't pay. Now I've got two options. I could have them stop delivering altogether, and at that point, if somebody could please tell me, does that make sense to where we're running off businesses away from this town? Because you're going to have Newman residents. Because I get people from Newman, from Gustine, from Crow's Landing coming in here weekly to buy product. So what we're telling these people is, you can't buy it locally in Newman anymore. Take your taxpayer money into Hillmar and go spend it in Hillmar. Go spend it in Turlock. Don't spend it in the city of Newman. That to me is crazy. That to me, I don't know how you justify that. And then I told another vendor, just in case, hey, the city might be approaching you on paying this license. And this particular vendor told me, you know what, we're not, and it's an ice cream vendor, I'll tell you who it is. And he said, we're not going to pay to bring ice cream into this town. So are we going to, as businesses, not have certain people come in because they don't want to pay the business, so we can't service the community, and they're going to go out somewhere else and pay the tax dollars? And like the ice cream guy told me flat out, he said, JJ, think about this. If they make my boss pay for the $75 or whatever it is a year, and a week later we find out that the city of Newman charged us, but didn't charge Joe Blow down the street, he told me, that's grounds for a lawsuit, because you're charging one person, you're not charging everybody. So my question is how do you police this? Who's policing this? Is every vendor being charged this? When was this put into effect? Like I said, I've been here 11 years, I've never heard of it. And are we doing it, like I said, with the milk trucks going into Saputo? Are you doing it with the hair products going to the bakery shops? To the hair salons? I don't think it's right. And if it is right, if the city is doing this, and I'm not the only business owner that feels this, and like I said, that's why we wanted to be put on the agenda so we could all come up here, or some of us come up here. Why weren't we notified? Why does the city, for example, go behind I say behind my back, disrespect me, and I've been here 11 years paying taxpayer dollars, but you call one of my distributors, get them all upset. Why didn't you just call me? Why didn't you just tell me, hey, this has to be done, and not hear from the vendor himself, stressing out, saying, we can't deliver because we don't want to get in trouble by the city of Newman. I don't think that's right. And, I've got other, and to me, this started 3 years ago, or 2 years ago. 2 years ago, when I was hesitant to come up here tonight, I'll be perfectly honest with you. I was very hesitant, because 2 years ago, I came in front of this council, not everybody that's here, but I came in front of this council, and I complained about a city wall, about my walls on Canelsco Drive that cars are going through, and, it was a big issue. Went up at city council. At that point, I was told, you shouldn't go up there. You own a business. You're going to have repercussions. I can tell you today, standing up here, for the last 2 years, I've had nothing but repercussions from this city against that business. That, to me, is not right. Because I spoke out 2 years ago because of the neighborhood. 2 years later, I think I'm paying for that. I'm paying for that because continuously, the city goes into my store and says, you can't have signs. You can't have these signs on the walls. You can't have the sign on the sidewalk. And like I've told several employees that go down there, hey, I'll do whatever the city wants. I'll pull down these signs, I'll move the lottery sign, I'll pull the banners. But within 24 hours, when you tell me to do it, you better be equal through the whole city, not just come to me. That's not right. That to me is harassment. I mean, you can't, every week something happens. Every week somebody's coming down there and telling me, you can't have this sign, you can't have this, but why just me? That to me, that's why I was hesitant to come here today. But at the same time, I don't want to lose customers. I've got a family to support. I pay this city tax dollars. And if you as a council want to send the tax dollars into Hillmore, into Turlock, I don't think that's right. You know, and every time an employee goes down there from the city and tells me, and I don't blame these employees, and I ask them certain questions, they don't have answers for me. They're coming from the city manager or whoever it is. The city manager for 2 years hasn't talked to me. Hasn't come into my store because I feel for what happened 2 years ago. That to me is very unprofessional. That to me is not right. But to me, enough is enough. I mean, this is starting to get out of hand. This is like, and I'll give you an example. 2 years ago, I put an article in the Madison newspaper about parking on Main Street, and we have a serious problem of parking on Main Street. And this is an example, a serious problem. And in that article, I mentioned that the biggest culprits were the business owners ourselves, because the business owners take up parking places on Main Street. I mean, we are the biggest culprits. Not all of us, but some of us are. Also in that article, I mentioned that, but how can the business owners follow it if the city of Newman employees and the city manager, we built a $1.something million parking thing over here, beautiful park. Nobody uses it. You have city staffing park on Fresno every day. So if city staff is parking on Fresno every day, what makes us conscious to park in that parking lot? We follow by example. 2 months after that, maybe it's a coincidence, my delivery trucks were told, you can't unload in front of the store. You can't unload on Fresno Street. Every time they come to deliver, you can't unload. So they told me you could unload in the alley, but you can't block the alley because of a fire truck. So now these trucks, some of them are parking out by the park. And they're bringing their product in on pallets, I mean, yay high. And another question I was asked, and I'll bring it up right now. If one of those pallets drops, because our sidewalks aren't very even, who's liable for that? Me as a business owner, because they can't unload into my store? The city, because they won't let them unload in front of my store? I mean, who's liable for that? But back to the other issue, the main issue, the tax thing is, 2 hours after this happened, 2 hours, and I went off on the phone, and I apologize to the girl that answered the phone in the city of Newman, but I told her, why are you harassing me? Have you done every other business? 2 hours after that, Budweiser from Modesto gives me a call. The VP of Modesto Budweiser says, JJ, what's going on in Newman? I said, what do you mean? And she said, we just got a call from the city of Newman saying that if we want to deliver into Newman beer, we have to pay a $75 business license. And I asked her, were you aware of that? She said, no. And she said, you know what, the funny part is that we weren't even asked. We were basically, and I could get this lady on the phone, we were basically told it was a demand for us to pay $75. That's not very good business practices, I think. To me, I think we're back like in the Wild Wild West days, or, you know, if you don't do this, you can't do business here, or if you don't pay this, that to me is not right. But if that is a city ordinance, and you want to enforce that, I think, like the lady at Budweiser says, a grace period should be given to all these businesses. You should figure out how you're going to notify every vendor, because it's not one vendor, two vendors. There's hundreds of vendors that come into this city every day. And if you're going to do one, you're going to do everybody. And if you want to send your taxpayer dollars to other cities, that's what you're going to do. And I don't think that's right. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, would anyone else like to get up and talk before the council? Now is your opportunity. There being none, we'll move on to the consent calendar. A, waive all readings of ordinance and resolutions except by title. B, approval of warrants. C, approval of minutes of the April 12th, 2016 meeting.
I move that we approve the consent calendar as read.
Second.
Motion has been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried with 3 and 2 absent. Item 9, public hearing. A, adopt resolution number 2016, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Abatement notices for property maintenance were sent to several properties in accordance with ordinance number 95-4, Chapter 2, Title 8-2-3. This notice informs property owners of all nuisance abatement procedures, options, and their right to object at a public hearing. Many of the property owners did comply, except for one property, which is listed here at 734 Foxglove Avenue. As you can see, the front yard is about 3 feet high with weeds. And those are the 2 pictures of the property. That's the best photo there. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions of Officer Short?
Move we adopt resolution 2016 next in number, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
Mayor, we have Councilmember Day, we have a public hearing first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's
I'm
okay.
sorry.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Since it is a public hearing, I open it up to the public for any comments. There being none, I bring it back to the council for direction.
Now I'll make my motion.
Okay.
To adopt resolution 2016 next in number, a resolution declaring the existence of a public nuisance under ordinance number 95-4.
I second.
Okay, motion made and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carried 3 with 2 absent.
Thank you.
Public hearing B, adopt resolution number 2016, next number, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Newman adopting general plan amendments number 16-01, 2015 housing element update consistent with section 65580 ETSEQ of the California Government Code and certifying the housing element update mitigated negative declaration.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Our consultant, Martin Carver with Coast Plans, is here, and he'll be doing a presentation regarding the item.
Very good. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mayor Martina. Good evening, members of the City Council. We're here to continue work on the Newman housing element. Now, we were last before you in January with what we would call a conceptual approval of that document, which allowed us to submit it to HCD, California Department of Housing and Community Development, for their review. We did that, got their comments in a couple of different ways, and in my presentation I'm going to talk a little bit about those comments. And we've revised the document. The document that you have in your packet tonight has yellow highlight throughout it so that you can see where the changes are very easily from the last time you saw the document in January. Two ways that we received comments from HCD. They were, first of all, kind enough to have a telephone conversation with me in February. And they did this before they wrote their letter, which is actually a good thing, because anything that we can clear up in a phone conversation, then they don't have to put in a letter. And so we had a conversation in February, and I revised the document in close consultation with your staff and resubmitted it to them. And then we got a formal letter after that. I want to go through some of the comments that we dealt with in February and then move on to the actual formal letter. First of all, they asked about expanding the discussion of public participation. So you can see in the document that I've filled that out some. They wanted us to provide detail on the Park Villa sites. They had some concerns about where they were in the process and how the sites could be counted for vacant and available. We dealt with that successfully. They wanted us to delete a policy, H-1.3, which makes reference to a 25% multifamily dwelling balance, 25% multifamily, 75% single-family. They had a concern that somehow the 25% might limit, somehow constrain the amount of affordable housing that could be provided in the city. You know, in any event, seemed like a kind of a silly comment. I recommended that we delete the policy altogether because it is simply reiterating what your general plan land use element already does. And that seemed to satisfy them and didn't really seem to do any substantive harm to the general plan itself. They asked that we provide more detail on the review of the last housing element, and as a result of that, I filled out an entire table following a model that they liked the best and put it in the appendix. They wanted various programs to be more specific with more details, discuss environmental constraints, talk about parking. We've gone around the bend on parking a couple of times. HCD doesn't seem to be in favor of 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit, particularly when it comes to single-bedroom apartments or studio apartments. And I explained to them in revising it based on these comments why that was an appropriate standard. They still came back, as you'll see in the letter, and still wanted to take us to task for that. And I'll talk a little bit more when we get to that. They wanted us to look at height limits and finally analyze a little further development fees. Now, all of these things were pretty easily dealt with except the parking. Then, again, having received those telephone comments, we revised the document, submitted it. They did a very quick turnaround and provided their formal letter reviewing it, and it was a positive letter in my opinion. It was fairly short. The number of things remaining, outstanding issues remaining, were fairly discrete, and so we set about dealing with those. First of all, there's some business about the sites that were rezoned in 2010. There's special statute that makes those rezonings come under special sets of rules. And so we will, I've put a policy in, a new policy in the document. It's referred to as H-1A. And just saying that we are going to address this issue essentially, and in the coming weeks and months, we're going to be bringing before you changes, revisions to the zoning ordinance and other parts of the city code, and we'll deal with this issue directly. But it's actually fairly easily dealt with and isn't really going to change the way city does business in any appreciable fashion. They wanted to see more information on the annexation area. Now, I had addressed the annexation area. I'm talking about the Northwest Newman Master Plan area. And they listed a number of things that they wanted to know about that master plan area. So I provided a fairly extensive analysis about that. Again, got into parking requirements, dove into it a little bit more, gave them a much more thorough analysis, including some census statistics on car ownership and transit usage and so on and so forth. And we're hopeful that they're just going to leave the issue go. At the end of the day, the state cannot force a city to adopt different parking standards. All they can do is require what state law requires, which is that we do an analysis of the zoning ordinance, and if we find that any particular regulation constrains the development of affordable housing in an unnecessary fashion, that we change it. I've done the analysis and found that it doesn't constrain it in that way, so we're going to leave it at that. Hope for the best. There was some business about the succession fund. The succession fund used to be called the Redevelopment Agency Housing Affordable Housing Fund. There are some monies left over in that. I'd made reference to that in the earlier draft, and they just wanted more information about that. They wanted us to beef up a policy to assist lower income housing and then address general plan consistency. Now, I've thought that it would be prudent to take just a moment and look just at the policies in the document. I feel like this is taking a little bit longer than I want, so I'm going to move through this pretty quickly. First of all, as I made reference a few minutes ago, I've used strikeout and yellow highlight to delete or propose deletion of policy H-1.3, which is that mix of single-family and multifamily. I've added a program, H1A. Again, this is about those special sites that were rezoned. I've restored program H14, which we were going to delete, and that's what we talked about in January. This is design standards for multifamily housing. The city has actually been doing fine without those standards. The policy was originally put in there because with more affordable housing, more apartments, there was some concern by the city council, I think way back in 2003, and if not then, maybe 2008, that design be done well, that the apartments be attractive apartments. Now, we were going to delete that because the city seemed to have a good process. That set off a red flag for HCD because part of what that did was note that any kind of design regulations had to be done in a ministerial fashion, that is without discretion. So I think we've dealt with that in any event. Let's see, there's various programs that have been revamped, simply adding that additional detail that they asked for. And finally, I have reorganized some of the programs. So something that maybe was numbered H-7 before is now perhaps H-20 to organize it under headings that they found more to their liking. And that's really the summary of changes. Now, I've taken some time to walk you through the comments and looked specifically at the changes in the programs and policies. I can take more time. If any of the city council members have a question about any of those changes, we can turn to the page in the document, we can take a closer look at it. But with your permission, I'm going to charge ahead. And at the end of my presentation, if we have questions, we can certainly deal with them then. A quick word about the CEQA analysis. A bit of a strange bird, really. The only thing in this housing element that rose to any kind of level of significance was the annexation of the northwest area, which this housing plan relies on, because without it, you don't have adequate sites to meet your affordable housing, to meet your housing needs allocation that's set by STANCOG. Anything else? All the other changes really don't engender any kind of environmental impact that would need to be addressed in a CEQA document. CEQA, sorry for the acronyms, California Environmental Quality Act. But that annexation policy did rise to that level. And fortunately, when the general plan was done back in 2007, there was a thorough EIR analysis of that annexation, covered a whole raft of issues from agricultural conversion to noise, to traffic, to water, and so on and so forth. What it did not do, however, was look at greenhouse gas emissions. And since 2007, when that general plan EIR was adopted, certified, new requirements have come down the pipe that say that you have to now look at greenhouse gas emissions. So that was missing. I've added that into this document. Otherwise, this document really does nothing more than reiterate what the 2007 EIR, general plan EIR, found about that annexation. That seemed the most reasonable way to provide information to this decision-making body to inform its decisions about adopting the housing element. So enough about the CEQA analysis, but I thought it worth taking a little bit of a detour there to do just that. I can note that that analysis on greenhouse gas emissions did lead to a mitigation measure, which reads, essentially requires that the developers of the Northwest Newman Master Plan area to prepare greenhouse gas emission reduction program for their development. Now, this is actually a mitigation measure that will closely mirror the general plan, the environmental impact report that's currently being prepared for that master plan area. So it's not anything new or different than what is already going to be required. And yes, that detailed project level EIR for the master plan area should be coming and be on the street here, I'm assuming in the next month or two, something like that. So that's really it for my presentation. This is a general plan amendment, the general plan amendment 16-01 that's before you, that requires approval and to support that approval, certifying the initial study negative declaration that was prepared for it. Both of these items were recommended by the Planning Commission just last Thursday, and I'm available for questions.
Any questions for the council? This being a public hearing, I'll open it up to the public for any comments. There being none, I bring it back to the council for direction.
Move for the adoption, excuse me, move for the adoption of resolution number 2016 next in number, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Newman adopting the general plan amendment number 16-01 2015 housing element update consistent with section 65-580 et sequitur of the California Government Code and certifying the housing element update mitigated negative declaration.
I'll second that.
Okay, a motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 3 with 2 absent. Thank you very much. Moving on to 10 would be regular business. A is report on 2015 Urban Water Management Plan. Listen.
Yes. Good evening, City Mayor and council members. I have a very brief presentation regarding 2015 Urban Water Management Plan update. Urban water suppliers, including the City of Newman, that either provide over 3,000 acre-feet of water annually or serve 3,000 or more connections are required to assess the reliability of the water system, water sources, over a 20-year planning horizon, considering normal, dry, and multiple dry years. A 20% reduction in per capita urban water consumption is required by 2020 based on the Water Conservation Bill of 2009, SB X7-7. As of April 2016, the City of Newman has over 3,200 connections and is now required to submit the 2015 Urban Water Management Plan to DWR by July 4, 2016. It's a new requirement for the city. With the approved Urban Water Management Plan, the city will be eligible to apply for future water grant and loan opportunities throughout Proposition 1 and other state funding programs. These are highlight of the draft Urban Water Management Plan. Between 2001 and 2010, the water use baseline was 239 gallons per capita per day. And 2006 to 2010, it's been reduced a little bit to 29 gallons per capita per day. The target baseline was set by 2020 is 191 gallons per capita per day. But however, because of our effective water conservation program in 2014-15, our actual, the water use in 2015 was 158. That means we already achieved the goal. This graph shows that where we are at in terms of water conservation. From 2008 to 2015, so majority of the lines is showing the water production rate from January to December. So middle area is more water production because it's a peak water demand season between June and August. But if you take a look, the green dot line, that's the 2015 water production rate, which means that the city of Newman is already compliance with water conservation the bill of 2009. These are highlight of the urban water management plan to be included. Water supply reliability assessment. The city has adequate capacity to meet current and short-term the future demands, as well as the water quality will be addressed because it's very important, the component of the plans. And future water source, the groundwater will continue being the main water source because the surface water, we learned that surface water is not available during the drought season, and also it's too expensive to expand our line to connect to the surface water line at this point. And also stormwater has been considered as another the water resources for open space as like a park. It is why the city has developed some plans for low impact development the project so far. Water shortage contingency plan. In 2015, the city developed the new ordinance 2015-2, which has established the adequate water conservation stages. As you know, the city is in stage 2, which allows only 3 days for outdoor watering for our resident. Odd number, odd address, even address, based on the schedule, only 3 days are available for irrigating the grass or the parks. These are very brief schedule for the next step. But today, April 26th, we overviewed draft 2015 urban water management plan. And this Thursday, April 28th, the city will release the draft 2015 water management plan to the public for their review and comment. And also the hard copy of the plans will be available in your mailbox by end of this week for your review. And we will continue to prepare the final urban water management plan by June. And in the June 28th council meeting, the public hearing will be scheduled to adopt the final 2015 urban water management plan. And the city will submit the final plan to the state by July 4th, 2016. And our Gobert Engineering, the city engineer, has been working as a project manager for developing the urban water management plan. So the city manager, city engineer staff is available here, Mr. Alfonso and Mario Gobert. Do you have any additional comments, or you want to provide some additional information to the council?
I know that you covered everything very well. I think this is the document that we have prepared. It's a lengthy document, and it covers everything that Mr. Kim explained to you. It's a regulatory report that is required. It's supposed to look at your future planning documents, intended to look at future. You want to go?
Yes. Yeah. Why don't you come to the front, because public cannot hear what you're saying.
Mayor, members of the council, good evening. Like Mr. Kim said, this is the document, the 2015 Urban Water Management Plan, that will be available for public review later this week. We have a 60-day public review period, and in 60 days, we will be back to have a public hearing, and then it needs to be formally adopted by the council. It is a planning document just to assess the reliability and how well your water supplies are for the next 20 years through year 25 years through year 2020. And it is also a document that gives DWR the information they need to see how the city is doing in water conservation. Like Mr. Kim said, in 2009, the state passed that water conservation bill that requires urban water suppliers to cut down their production 20% by 2020. Now this document gives the state a snapshot of how things are going for you and for every other urban water supply in the state. So, and as Mr. Kim stated, the city is already ahead of the game. So you're okay on that regard. I think everything has been covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either myself and the project manager are available for any question you may have.
Any questions of the council?
No, thank
Not
you.
at this time.
No questions tonight. Thank you, gentlemen. Water is gold.
Yeah, very important.
And we're finding out more every day.
Yeah, very important component for the city. So we're working hard.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay, under 10B, adoption of resolution number 2016, a resolution declaring the intention to establish a community facility district and to authorize the levy of special taxes and set the time and place of the public hearings.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and take that. Mayor, members of the council, good evening. So tonight, this kind of goes back into a little bit of a history. It was in early 2006 that the community looked at our former swimming pool. It was called the Plunge. There were substantial cracks in the building. We had a structural engineer go in and do an analysis and ruled that we needed to condemn the building and no longer put the public in there because it wasn't safe anymore. So ultimately, we had to raise the property and demolish it and remove it. In 2007, the Newman Redevelopment Agency purchased a site at near the corner of Upper and Merced, the Howard B. Hill property. The Howard B. Hill Park is there right now, and there's a remainder property there, and that was always intended to be an aquatic center for which the redevelopment agency was going to move forward with. In fact, it was the redevelopment agency held several community meetings, had a community committee work together, and they had drafted up some plans, design development plans, as well as schematic, and then we ended up getting to about 75% construction documents, and then we kind of put it on hold because it was in 2008 that the economy and the recession hit and put a damper on the particular project. We thought we'd put it on hold until that passed. Unfortunately, nobody saw the state and all their wisdom come through and decide that redevelopment agencies were not a good thing, and redevelopment of our sites were not a good thing. So they killed redevelopment agency and essentially killed our funding mechanism to not only construct a community pool, but also to maintain it as well. During the election season of 2014, I know a number of you were out and walking the precincts, and a recurring issue that you kept hearing from the community was, hey, what's going on with the community pool? Where's our pool? And you brought that information back to staff, and so in early 2015, after the election happened, the council responded to the community needs and put together and commissioned a feasibility study to see if it was possible to actually do a special facilities district, a CFD, a community facilities district, and fund the construction and maintenance of a pool. And then you also formed a community committee to evaluate that, as well as to work with city staff on that. It was determined that it could be fiscally feasible, and so to play the next role in that, the council commissioned a survey, public survey, a poll to be commissioned, and what they did was they called up and members of our community and polled them and asked them if they would support a local community facilities district, a self-tax, to support the construction and the maintenance of a pool. It came back with a positive favor of about 2/3, which would be required in order to get that moving forward. So at that time, council directed staff, hey, okay, start getting stuff together so that we can have the electorate evaluate this and possibly vote on this in November of 2016, which is our next general election, presidential election. So today before you, what we have is a resolution basically the city council declaring their intentions of forming a community facilities district. A community facilities district is your financing mechanism. It also allows you to incur debt and also to levy taxes. And so basically tonight with the first resolution, you're declaring your intentions of forming that community facilities district, and then you're setting a public hearing to occur on June 14th. So on June 14th, we'll have a public hearing on this to allow the public to speak about the intentions of creating this community facilities district in an effort to form a community facilities district that would fund the construction and maintenance of a community pool. So, with that, I can answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Questions for the council?
Not a question, just a comment. Setting this public meeting to discuss the potential for the lighting district, or for the facilities district and the potential levy of the tax is really important to our community so that they can become involved and be aware of the things that are happening in our community. So this is an important step in this process.
And Councilmember Day is correct. This is the first step in getting this in front of the electorate in November of 2016. And ultimately, them having our electorate or our voters having the final say if this is something they want to move forward with.
That's it?
Perfect.
I'll bring it back to council for direction.
I move that we adopt the adoption of resolution next number 2016, a resolution declaring the intention to establish a community facilities district and to authorize the levy of special taxes and set the time and place of the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Okay, a motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried, 3 with 2 absent. And as everyone said, this is our first step.
First step.
Okay, moving on to 10C, adopt resolution number 2016, next number, a resolution declaring the intention to incur bond indebtedness.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This is a companion resolution. As you know, we've talked about the community facilities district, and our supervisor, DeMartini, has been very gracious, and he's talked a little bit about the possibility of Stanislaus County being the funding agency in terms of loaning the city money instead of having to go out and sell bonds. But we need to have a fallback position that says that if we can't get the deal from the county, we can bond for this particular measure. So this is basically a fallback position, a plan B, if you will, if Stanislaus County and Supervisor DeMartini and ultimately if something falls through the cracks and that deal doesn't fall through and they're unable to fund us, we still maintain the ability to incur indebtedness through the sale of bonds. So that's why we're asking you to adopt this resolution tonight as a secondary item, companion item.
I think that this is going through the county and using, them as a funding source is so much better than going to a bond. Just the savings in that alone is substantial, and that all that savings based on the taxpayer, that's coming out of their pocket. So I think that obviously if we want that to succeed. So with that, I move that we adopt resolution next number 2016, a resolution declaring the intention to incur bond indebtedness.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried with 3 with 2 absent. Okay, item 11, item from District 5, Stanislaus County Supervisor, Mr. Jim D. Martini. Good evening, Supervisor.
Good evening, Mayor Martina, members of the council. I just have a couple of things tonight. Just before this meeting, our subcommittee of the Healthcare Task Force met in your former council chambers. So we were doing the beginning of the planning for the Health Summit, and this subcommittee will make recommendations to the full committee at our next meeting. Tentative date, depending upon the availability of the West Side Theater, would be August 25th. And we're putting that together. We plan to have health screenings and the Biggest Loser contest again this year, with the way out to be October 26th at Gustine City Hall. Now, in that one, we want to expand the program a little bit to have some youth activities in the way out, as the schools will be out early that day. So the Parks and Recreations Director is going to try and do some activities for the teenagers. We appreciate the use of the building there too. It really was handy tonight because one person was from Gustine, two from Newman, and I was here tonight, so it was just really nice that we were able to use that as a meeting place. Also, in other news, last week the county board has approved a new Veterans Center. This facility is 37,000 square feet. It's over on Coffee Road and Sylvan Road in Modesto. It is under construction now, and this will be a one-stop shop for veterans. We'll be moving out our county services for veterans from the building that it's in now at Downey Avenue to the new facility. And so everything for veterans would be there. It'd be a one-stop shop. The building has kitchens, banquet rooms, and various meeting halls. And this facility will be provided to all veterans groups anywhere in the county to use at no charge at any time they want. It is not specific to American Legion or Veterans of Foreign Wars or Modesto or Ceres or anywhere else. It's for everybody. And so while this is under construction, we were going to make the staff changes there probably sometime in the late summer. We planned the grand opening on Veterans Day and November 11th in the afternoon. I didn't write down what time it was, but I know it's in the afternoon sometime. We will be open before that, but that would just be the grand opening. This has been a project that's been several years in the making, and we finally put it all together. The county's commitment to this facility is $5 million a year with the staff, with an additional $1 million that we put into it for the rehabilitation of the building. So it used to be a grocery store. And we sold the medical arts building. We took that $1 million and put it into the veterans building. So it's a project that, you know how it is in government. You work on it for years and years, and finally, if everything lines up and it just came together. So it's under construction now. Before the grand opening, I'll mention it again if anybody from Newman would like to attend it. And that's all I have this evening.
Yep. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Items from the city manager and staff.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Just a couple updates. We've been working with CCID on a long-term plan to deliver water out to our wastewater treatment plant. As you know, we've been working with the Regional Quality Board with respect to trying to expand our wastewater treatment plant capacity in order to accommodate the Northwest Quadrant. We've been working on that for about 10 years now. It seems like we're getting closer. They think they're going to get us a scheduled date. Part of that does require us to work with CCID to get water with less salinity in terms of the quality of it, so that we can mix with our quality of water that's at the treatment plant. Basically, we at the treatment plant, we have what's called about 2,500 water. That's how much salt is in it. We're going to dilute it with 600 water, which we would get from CCID, and then apply that over our land. As you know, we have a farming operation out there. So just working with them, they seem agreeable in terms of getting a deal done, but the details would always needs to be worked out. And so I've been working a little bit with our wastewater treatment plant operator, Lance, in terms of getting some specifics, and then meeting with Chris White over at CCID. So that's moving along nicely. Continue to work with the county. Met with Supervisor Chiesa. I've met with Mr. Risen. We've met with and talked with Supervisor DiMartini a little bit about the pool. The probability of us getting an agreement for financing ahead of the vote is probably not going to be possible. But if it is successful, it definitely sounds like the county, if they can work out the details through their legal department, are up for the task of providing us that loan, which would save our residents tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in bonding costs. So that's a good deal. We did pass that second resolution tonight, because you always need to have a fallback plan in case that doesn't work out. But it's really looking good, and I want to thank Supervisor DiMartini. I know he's kind of been talking this up a little bit amongst his colleagues as well as the CEO over there, he's done a good job. They're all well aware of the project, so, and they all support it. Their biggest challenge is the transportation sales tax measures on there as well, and trying to get them both passed is going to be difficult. So I've assured them that our council will support both of those, and really, when we talk to our community, show how both of those, the transportation and the local one, can benefit our residents. So things are moving forward with the annexation. We're nearing completion of the administrative draft of our EIR, so we're, towards, hopefully by the middle of May, towards the end of May, we could hopefully have that out on the street. A lot of it will depend on our consultant and when they can incorporate our comments, but we're real close to having that EIR out for official review through all the government agencies as well as the public. Get those comments back and then start scheduling some public hearings with respect to the Planning Commission and the City Council. It's an important project for the community. As you know, this is an annexation that has the potential to create 2,000 jobs for our community, which is something that there is some job growth that is occurring in Stanislaus County, and specifically here on the west side. We just want to try to make sure that we capture some of that and bring that here to Newman as best we can, so that our residents can have local jobs. And then with respect to the business license issue that you heard about tonight, that is an item that's been on our books for about 20 years. And similar to when you go down to the DMV and you get a driver's license, they don't go over every single rule with you on the roads. So we don't go over every single rule that we have in our books in terms of a business license. Our staff does a good job when they see somebody who doesn't have a business license, whether it be a contractor who is doing business in town or a delivery person or whatever. We tend to contact them, and 90% of the time we get compliance without any issues. Sometimes the contractor or somebody else will not want to do the job here in town, and that's their right. They don't have to do it here, but according to our rules, if you are going to conduct business and do deliveries within the city of Newman, and you are going to get a city business license, which is about $75, which is substantially lower than a lot of the other cities in the area. So with that, I can answer any questions that you may have.
All right, did you want to say anything about the marijuana recreational?
We did have, thank you, Mayor. The mayor and I went, they're the county-wide group led by Supervisor Chiesa again. We're trying to get on the same page in terms of the cities and the county on how we're going to address recreational marijuana when it gets on the November ballot and if it gets approved. So, our residents should suspect that November 16th there will be a ballot measure on there that I think will that will legalize recreational marijuana in the state of California. As you know, right now we have a ban on transportation and cultivation, as well as the sales of marijuana in our community. So we're going to have to take a look at that. And I know we're just trying to all get on the same page, and there's different items that are being floated out there in terms of how it's going to be addressed. But if we don't address it together, it's going to happen to us. So it's better that we get out there. I think the current wording on the measure says I think there's a 1-year wait before it gets legalized, but I don't think the language has been finalized, so don't quote me on that. But the mayor and I will continue to meet with them on this, and most of the cities seem to be in agreement that we need to do something as a group to regulate it and tax it, which would then create a mechanism for which we can just patrol it and go from there. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, comments from staff? Lieutenant? Nothing. Stephanie?
Good evening. As a result of the adopted housing element, staff will be filing a notice of determination with the county clerk as required by CEQA, so we'll be doing that within the next 5 days. Also, as a result of the housing element, excuse me, we'll have a number of ordinances that are going to be brought before the council for review and approval. They include the things that Martin talked about, some of the revisions to our zoning code and some new programs. And just to kind of put the word out there to the public, staff will be completing some CDBG demographic survey work this week. We're required by HUD to gather information, so we'll be doing like door-to-door knocking and surveying in certain project areas. So we'll be doing that this week, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Thank you, Sam. Lou?
Treasurer's report's been completed for March, and it's in your inboxes. And then also, we're working on our budget to have that ready, projected June 1st. We should have those out distributed to you guys to review, and then our first council meeting in June, we'll have our workshop and give you an opportunity to adopt it at that time. Happy to answer any questions you may have on anything.
Questions? Thank you for keeping us financially sound. Kazoon?
Yeah, good evening again. I have an update for two projects. The first one is the Barrington Park parking lot. The city installed LED light for the parking areas. That was completed. It's working really well so far. The another project is regarding the removing 10 big willow trees along the Sherman Ditch. The project will start this week. And the city recently restriped the Sherman Parkway about 1.5 miles because the lines kind of faded out. So we complete the project as well. That's all I have tonight. I can answer to any question you may have.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh, thank
Yes.
you for the light. I know a lot of people in that neighborhood are very appreciative of it.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the lights. I was just wondering, do they come on automatically, or they are on all night?
It's based on the sensor because the same as the parking
Okay.
lot street. There's a sensor, so it's darker and it's on automatically.
Okay, yeah. But it provides a lot of security in that area now.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
you're welcome.
Chief?
Mayor, council, again, I just want to thank you for the time to present the new firefighters with their badges today. Just a reminder, fire season's slowly approaching. I don't know if you guys saw the 25-acre fire just in our backyard here off of Sullivan the other day. So it's coming. Even though you see green, it's still burning. So I can answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. And from the council?
I'd like to welcome the two new firefighters. Thank you. A lot of time and dedication to the career you guys chose, or the path you guys chose, volunteering. A long history and tradition of it. You know, most of the country, a majority of the country of the firefighters are still volunteer. So we appreciate the city appreciates it.
Thank you, Casey.
And I second that comment. We really appreciate the dedication that you've shown by putting in the time that you put in already, and we know that your services in this community are going to be greatly appreciated.
I also thank you very much for your services. Just, you know, volunteer firemen are crucial to our city, and without people like yourself, you know, we're not protected, but thank you so much. And, the only comment I'd have is our poor council member, he's taking a beating. He said that the other person looks worse than him.
That's true.
Anyway, with that, I'd like to ask for adjournment.
So move.
Second.
Motion is made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're adjourned.